Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am really excited to be here talking about Rebel, a brand new show on ABC. And today we're joined by Katey Sagal, lead actor and co-executive producer, Krista Vernoff, who's a creator and executive producer, and Erin Brockovich, who is executive producer, activist, and advocate. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. Well, okay, let's start. I'm really excited to talk about the show. So I just want to kind of dive into this. I am curious if maybe Krista and Erin can talk a little bit about the development of this show. Like, why now? Why is this a legal drama with a different kind of hero? You know, like Erin, you've already had a movie made about your life. Like, tell me the impetus of why this show and why today.
Yeah, Krista, why?
Well, I'll say this. I want to give credit where it's due, which is to John Fox. We've got a lot of power women here, but somehow it was John Fox's idea. He's a producer, to contact Erin and ask her what she was doing today and could he have her life rights for today. I got a call after they developed a pilot the season before that didn't go, but they really wanted a show about Erin. They just didn't feel like that writer had nailed it. And so I got a call of was I interested in developing a show about Erin Brockovich's life today? And I was like, no, because I do other television shows and I can't make any TV shows. And then I was like, but Erin Brockovich. And then my agent texted and said, Erin Brockovich is going to be in the meeting if you take the meeting. And I was like, yes. Like, I knew I couldn't do any more work, but I knew I had to meet Erin. And I went in thinking that that I might supervise someone else. And then we got on like a house on fire, talked for 2.5 hours, and I left and I turned to my husband and I was like, oh my God, somehow I'm gonna write a pilot this year. And that was, and the why now is like, why the fuck not now? Why would you not right now when we're all feeling hopeless and kind of devastated and despairing? And keep in mind, this started 2 years ago. So Trump was still in office and it was like, we need something that's about someone who does not give in to despair and hopelessness, who always does the next right thing. And that is why for me. I don't know why for Erin and Katey. I would like to know why.
Well, the minute I met Krista, I mean, she did say no. So I was a little like, I'm not sure how this is going to go. But the minute we got to talking, I mean, it's this really interesting connection, and I can't always explain it. And it was even before, like, we knew then that something was swirling around in the air that just we were all trying to connect to, and we just kind of connected on this kind of just overall collective thing about frustration or hope or doomsday or how we rise and activism and all of it. And then we just got into really deep conversations about life and kids and all the ups and downs and vulnerabilities and how everything's not in a box and it's never perfect. And I'm just like, I was so relieved because Krista's so real and she gets it, and she can see and feel oftentimes the bigger picture. And so really now, with COVID happening, I was terrified it was just never going to get going, but it seems so much more relevant in ways today, the messaging, than it even did, Krista, when you and I first got together.
Yeah.
But so Krista's unique. So is Katey. And we've had conversations before. I can't always explain it, that they get it. They understand it. They feel it. And there's just such a big thing happening right now that is a whole lot of things at once, and where we find each other again, and just that becomes the empowerment in the story. Yeah, so for me, it's fabulous.
Yeah, I love when you meet people who just feel like creative partners in the most like synergy is such a cheesy marketing word, but in such a way that you're like, oh, I have to do this. You'd be perfect to do this with and feel really energized by. So that's lovely.
Well, Katey, that both of, Krista and Katey, I mean, had none of this ever happened, you just like want to be their friend. It's just like, oh, you're so cool. Can I just hang out?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I'm wondering, and Katey, not to talk about you in third person, but I'll come back around to you. I'm just wondering, like, well, actually, I'll just talk about you directly. You seem like the perfect choice for this. Like you just naturally feel like, this character. And I'm wondering like when did you get involved? Like how far into the casting process was Katey always considered for this role?
Katey, the pilot was written for Katey. I had lunch with Katey before I wrote it. You could tell that, Katey.
Well, she came and, we know, Krista and I know each other from way back, which if you read the Hollywood Reporter article, apparently you'll find out everything about us. But I know Krista through different circumstance, though. I don't know her through work. I know her through service, actually. So when I got a call from ABC who was trying to find something for me to do, and they said, would you meet with Krista Vernoff? I was like, well, are you kidding? Of course. Yeah. So I met with Krista and we had a lunch, and she said she had this project that was based on the life of Erin Brockovich today. And it was just, for me in my life right now, to do something that creatively also is important, means something. I echo what both of them have just said, is that the timing of where we are in the world right now needs people to advocate for themselves, which was something that was very important that Krista explained to me about Erin, that she loved so much, was that, the point is to empower people. It's not to give them the fish, it's to give them the fishing pole. So she had this script that she showed me that I loved, that was I just couldn't say no to it. It was very and then when I met Erin and we all went to lunch, it was a good old gal lunch. I don't even know that we talked that much about the show. We talked about other stuff. And it's just been like, I agree with Erin. There's just been something about it all that has fallen into place. And, I can use words. There's something divine about it. And, that is very important to me. And I know to Krista, and I'm sure to Erin.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, that's one way I got involved.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. One thing that I noticed in watching the pilot was something I was reflecting on, is that like TV shows always have like this big bad, right? TV shows, video games, movies, it's always just this like one bad person, right? And if you take out the CEO, then everything is fine. Or if you just take out the bad guy, everything is fine. And the reality is that like a lot of our injustice in the world is systemic, right? It's institutional. It's not just take out have a different president, everything is going to be perfect. Although, like nice that we have a different president now, but there's we need to start looking at things more systemically. And I think over the last several years, popular consciousness has shown a lot of that in the activist movements that we're seeing swelling up. People who were not political before are starting to understand that. So to me, a show like this is really exciting, because the only other shows I can really think of that approach from a systemic level are like shows like Leverage or The Wire, that really are just like, these institutions are faulty. How do we fix them? So I'm wondering a little bit about like, well, I guess you didn't pitch the show, but maybe just talk about that, because it's not very often that we get programming that really focuses on systemic injustice.
I did pitch the show. I mean,
okay.
met Erin, and then I had to come up with a take, and I went to ABC with that pitch. And it's funny, I am a systemic injustice person, and I've done a lot of it on Grey's and Station 19 in the last couple of years, but I didn't pitch this from that angle. I pitched this as a character study. I pitched it as a really funny, really fierce woman who doesn't take no for an answer and doesn't play by any rules that she considers to be inconvenient or unjust or just like unnecessary. Like, she's not interested in arbitrary rules. And
they don't make sense. They don't make sense.
They don't make sense. And I relate, like, the way I started the pitch, it's funny. There was a Writers Guild arbitration over credits, so I had to go back and read everything. The way I started that pitch was by saying, My friends nicknamed me Erin Brockovich in my 20s on the heels of an incident that happened in a Santa Barbara parking lot at the beach, where my boyfriend at the time and I were walking back to our car, and a woman was screaming for help. She was being abused, and her boyfriend was driving away, and she was screaming out the window, help. And my boyfriend pulled out his phone to call 911, and a bunch of other people were sort of standing by and watching. And I walked around to the passenger side, opened the door, and pulled the woman out of the car. And my therapist told me that my husband was right to just call 911, and I fired my therapist. I was like, no, you don't let a dude drive off with a woman who's screaming for help. You don't. And so whatever are the societal rules that we're all expected to play by, I'm not super interested in either. So I just understand Erin. I just get her. And so that's how I pitched the show. And it is a show that's about all the brokenness, and the fact that sometimes you have to play outside the rules of a broken system in order to get actual justice. And that's what, but I pitched it through like, I know this woman, I get this character.
Nice.
I think it's also really interesting. I mean, one of the other things that interested me was not only the point of view of fighting for justice, was also the complicated family life that this character has. And as a woman who's had a very complicated personal life myself, you know, different husbands, different children, but, you know, I really love that we are telling that story, because that story is so, nobody does this perfectly. No woman I know raising children and also having work that they love and that they believe in, you know, we're just juggling. So what's so great about Rebel is that she, you know, she fucked up. She fucks up. She's like, she's not perfect. She just completely is trying to keep everything happy. And what's interesting to me, I've been really reflecting on it lately, is you see her older children in the show who have both got a chip on their shoulder about her. At the same time, they have both gone into service and justice positions. So that's really interesting to me, that one's a doctor, one's a lawyer. And even though you see in the workings of the show how they figure out their intimate lives and all this stuff kind of comes back to how they were raised. And, you know, it just felt so real to me that, you know, we are not perfect, you know, and as women raising children and having jobs and doing all that, which I know all three of us are that, you know, we do the best we can, you know, and we be the role models that we'd like to be, which ultimately for me, I love that my children have seen a working mom. That to me is a fantastic thing to model. But, you know.
Yeah. One of my questions for you actually is that the scenes with you and your children are so natural and convey so much love and like interesting dynamics and difficulties that come with family. And it was more of an observation than a question. Just like, I think you kind of explained partly you're bringing so much experience into that role, and also the writing of it and everything. I think really you see that a lot in it. So thank you for sharing that.
The writing really informs everything. I mean, the reason I took the job is because the writing is so good. Because I understand that that's where, you know, if you don't have that, you don't have anything. And then,
sure,
you know, it's true. And then as we started to put all the people together, and then all of a sudden we got Andy Garcia, and then we got John Corbett, and then we got Lex, and then we got, you know, it was just, you know, it's all about chemistry and writing. It really, really is. And, you know, and then not to mention, it's just such great subject matter. So,
Erin, there is a line in the pilot where someone says about Annie, she's not a lawyer, she's just loud, which is such a good line. And I was wondering, so congratulations for being that, and for Krista for writing it. And, can you talk a little bit about the differences between this fictionalized version of your life versus the theatrical version that also bears your name? Like, how do you engage with this material for yourself?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know that, again, Krista might know better than I would now. I don't always look at that. I mean, when you ask me, I can tell you what's happening now fits and feels different and more real to me than even the film. I mean, gosh, so much time has passed. I was a very young girl when I started Hinckley. I was 30 and pregnant. I mean, I took Elizabeth out there as a baby in diapers. I mean, she got potty trained in Hinckley by, pooping in people's front yards. And I was like, oh my gosh, because, I had to keep an eye on her, but they'd keep an eye on her. I was so young, and it's looking back on that. And now oh my gosh, I'm 60 and a grandmother of 4. And it's been all of that in between that I think feels for me like it's coming out in Rebel. And I've talked with Chris about this. I've talked with Katey. They're through all these years, the frustrations and it's never been about me. It's about all of us. And where we feel like we don't fit or we can't speak up. I see it in communities. You're not this, you're not that. You shouldn't do that. But the most common sense, logical thing was in front of them. But then we're foolish or crazy if we act upon it. And it's just been a whole lot of that's gone on in my life that I share in my communities, in my work, that I know communities are feeling that. I don't know, through Rebel, people can watch and go, oh, I understand that. I relate to that, been there, done that. And this is where my connection with Krista was so magnificent. And as we peel back the layers of Krista, we learn too that, because she's been there, done that. I think I mentioned to Krista once before, and I'll say it, way back in the day, when the film first came out. And I did an interview with Bill O'Reilly. We all remember Bill O'Reilly, and I was terrified because I knew I was just going to get ripped to shreds, which basically that's kind of what happened. It's like, you don't have the greatest education. You've got a foul mouth. You're broke. You're raising 3 kids. It's like from over here, and why should we take anything from you? And I was stunned. And that was the second time something like that happened in my life. Why? Because I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you what. You know why? Because I've been there, done that. That because I've done something that you don't understand, therefore I shouldn't have done it, or I'm dismissed because of it. Just drives me nuts. And so there's so much here that through the course of from the time the film left to here, you're talking a span of almost 30 years. Yeah. What's been seen and said, you're watching all of it. We are all watching it just spill over.
So Krista, I actually am really interested in a bit of your process. If you would share, like, what is it like to adapt a real story into a fictional narrative? And in addition, reading that Hollywood Reporter article, that's delightful, and I think everyone should read it. It's very good. You talk about how you integrated bits of your own life and experience into this as well. And so I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about like your process. Please tell us the magic of how you work.
There is magic. That's, I don't wear all the crystals for no reason. I actually am a believer in the magic, but let's see. There were certain parameters with this project because I met Erin, loved Erin, and was told I could have a character based on Erin, but she couldn't be called Erin. We didn't have the rights to her name. And she couldn't be called Erin Brockovich, and we didn't have the life rights to the people in her life. So I could build a world with a central character inspired by the life of Erin Brockovich today is the title that will be on screen. And but that was it. And the danger, because we don't have the life rights of the people surrounding her, is like, oh wait, I've seen the movie and I've got her life, but I don't have their life rights, so I have to be really careful not to tread. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to watch that movie one more time to remind myself what I love about the sort of lore of Erin Brockovich, because that movie is the lore. And then I read her first book, and while I was on my honeymoon in Greece, actually, I read Erin's first book, and then I had one more conversation with Erin, which turned out to be like a 4-hour. Like, she came to my office and it was like, we're gonna have lunch, and then it was like, cancel my afternoon, because we just don't stop once we start. And So I had, 6 hours of conversations with Erin. I read the book and I watched the movie one time. And then it was like, I don't want to know anymore. I can't ask any more questions about her kids. I don't want to know about her sister. I don't want to know about her parents. I don't want to know any more about her ex-husbands. I have to go make people up. So, so my own family dynamic is the way I've always written about my family. I boiled it down for network television. It's actually way more complicated than what I'm about to say. But the way I've always boiled it down is 1 dad, 3 moms, 3 daughters. There's actually 5 of us, and none of us have the same 2 parents, and our parentage is really complicated. But I've written several pilots for network television, 1 dad, 3 moms, 3 sisters. And they've never gotten on the air. So I was like, well, what if I just take that dynamic that I understand because I lived a version of it, that I have written about many, many times. I know that Erin has had 3 husbands, and why don't we take that dynamic of one, but reverse it? So 1 mom, 3 kids, 3 husbands. And when I read her first book, it was written at a time when she was still married and still in love with her 3rd husband. And I thought that was an interesting place to start a show that's about a woman who in many ways sacrifices her personal life at the altar of the greater good. So to find her still in love with the 3rd husband and see the deterioration of that marriage was the most interesting angle for me. And so my process was I lay on the beach on my honeymoon. I had 2 weeks off from running 2 network shows, and I dreamed about what I'd read and seen, and I stared at the sky, and then I wrote the pitch on the plane on the way back from Greece. And that is the magic. When I talk about the magic of my process, it's that, and COVID has been really hard. Airplanes, I get on airplanes and I write like at a superhuman speed. I don't know why. I think it has to do with my anxiety disorder, and the airplanes make me even more anxious, and I channel all of the anxiety into the writing. And I've been literally, I once wrote 78 pages on an airplane from London to Los Angeles. Like, I just write at a superhuman speed. So that's it. I wrote the pitch, and then I wrote the outline for the pilot on a plane to Hawaii, spent 3 days with my kids in Hawaii, like a few months later. And the magic of that was that I ran into John Fox, who had brought me the project at the hotel in Hawaii. I'd literally flown to a hotel to write this pilot and ran into the producer. And I was like, oh, it's a sign. This one's going. Like, we just agreed it was a sign. And then I wrote the pilot, the first draft, on the airplane on the way back. And now writers everywhere hate my guts because that's I wrote the pilot on the airplane on the way back from Hawaii. And yes, it took me 6 hours on an airplane to write a draft, but it took me 6 hours plus a couple hundred hours of walking around. I walk around and I think about it. I feel it. I feel all the characters. I feel everyone's feelings. I walk in nature and it all kind of comes into my body, and then I get it out of my body by putting it on the page. Usually, ideally on an airplane.
I just want to accent what you said at the end there, because as you were talking, you're like, I was on the beach in Greece and then I was in Hawaii. Like, having rest and having space, I think, is a really critical aspect to creativity that we in our go, go, go culture don't appreciate or give time for. And so not that you were I don't know if you were vacationing on the other one, but it's kind of what I'm hearing is that you're just sitting with it and letting it percolate naturally.
I will not have vacations. I will not have vacations. My life has been too hard to not also play. So I'm really good at playing, and I'm really good at playing games with my own motivation. So it's like, I will write the game I play is, if you get the outline written on the airplane to Hawaii, you don't have to work the whole time you're there, and you can just surf with the kids. And then you have to write the first draft on the plane back to LA. That's the game. So it gives me this deadline, and I get it all done, and then I just surf, and then I just play. Yes, it is. And while I'm out in the water, it's percolating. It's working. Ideas are coming, but I'm not frantically trying to run in and write them down. I'm trusting that if they're supposed to stick, I'm going to remember when I get back to my computer. I have to have breaks and I have to play or I can't.
Yeah.
Why be alive?
Yeah, I love that. As we're talking about sort of creative process, Katey, I wanted to talk a little bit about like, can you just tell us a little bit about like how you play this role? Like it's a hybrid of a real person and a fictional person. Like how do you approach that as an actor? And are there like favorite scenes that you had or like favorite aspects to this character in particular?
It's interesting that Krista said, when we first had lunch with Erin, when I did, and I started asking Erin about her family and where she was born and because I was in my own mind, I was, building a backstory. And Krista, after the lunch, she actually, maybe it was during lunch, she stopped me. She said, "We're not doing this exactly. So back up. You don't need to have all that information because we're inspired by, but we're not doing that." So, my thing is well, first of all, so much of her is well written on the page, so much of her interactions and her relationships. So I don't really consider that I'm playing, it's not a biography. So I don't go there. I kind of have my own little backstory that I wrote a little story about who Rebel is before we ever see Rebel. And that's just what I do as an actor. So I know kind of why I am where I am. And, so it's been really, really challenging because, I am challenging in the greatest way. I am sort of known for playing badass women. So I understood why they came to me, but she's also very different than some of the badass women I've played. She's not an outlaw. I've played someone who put a bullet in your head, but she kind of is, what I mean? She's on the edge. She will do whatever it takes. And as Krista always has reminded me, and this was probably it probably still is. She would say to me, she's not nurturing in the way that you are nurturing. She is nurturing as I am, that she is nurturing in that she empowers other people to be all they are. And I really do understand that. And I sort of, but it's a different kind of mothering than I am. Not that I don't empower my children to be all they are, but I also like to tell them what to do, and I listen to them and I listen to their point of view, and I'm, and I'm also a little bit more laid back than Rebel, actually very much more laid back. And so there's been an energy that I've had to tap into, which has been, it's like every time Krista comes to the set, this is why I like text Krista because Krista will come to the set and she will just have that energy. She'll just have it. And so then I'm reminded of it just sparks her words even more. And it helps in my process because, we're just at the beginning of this. We're still figuring out who everybody is. We're still figuring out the relationships. We're just, we're in the first year. So we're finding it and hopefully we get to keep finding it. So I have no idea if this answers your question because now
you're doing great. My questions are just to get you talking. So wherever you end up.
I say that Katey's the transformation in Katey as she's done her work in Rebel has been extraordinary to see. Rebel is so different than the other characters that Katey has played. She thinks and she talks and she feels everything simultaneously. It's all really fast. And Katey, I've known her a long time. She's gentle and nurturing, and she can get you to hear a truth by approaching you and saying the really gentle words that are going to help you come to that truth on your own. And I'm always like, nope, she yells it across the room. She doesn't have time. She doesn't have time to gently help you get there yourself. She yells what you need to hear from across the room because she's also not worried about appearances. So it helps how well I know Katey. Katey's been a very nurturing force in my life. So to know how she nurtures and to be able to say, it's not that, I know what you're doing. It's still nurturing, but it's a completely different style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that insight into directing and working with actors and finding the character manifesting. My last question, Erin, I am wondering, like, what do you hope viewers take away from this?
Relatability, understanding, compassion, kind of where I've weaved in and out with before. And in listening, I could sit here all night. I wish we didn't have to go with Katey and Krista. I feel things. Krista gets that. I get that. I fly by the seat of my pants. I mean, I may be in a situation and go, I don't know why the hell I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it because you just feel it. And I think a lot of us are. I think that there's, oftentimes we don't really want to be us because there's been always so much judgments and ideas and perceptions and limitations, and you have to be this, and if you're not that, I don't know, it just I think of a Beatles song, and I've said it before, I am you, you are me, we are all together. And I think that oftentimes we don't talk or come forward because we think that somebody else is going to make that label or judgment or perception. But these two women, and it just, you just feel it. You have to almost just get down on that set and feel it and be around them. We know it, we understand it. It is collective. It is compassionate. It's vulnerability. It's strength. It's nurturing. It's life. And it's just all of these things that you can, I hope, relate to and be okay with being who you are and embracing that person and not letting all the ideas that someone thinks that you did it the wrong way stick on you, because that just stifles you. And I think that's really who Rebel and obviously Katey and Krista and that energy comes from. It's like just ripping it off, man, and just being you. Can't we just, be imperfect? I'm very comfortable with that, by the way. So
I also think I just want to add this real quick because I think this is what's so empowering is that most people feel that their one voice can't do anything. Most people in the world, especially right now, look at the way that we are and are just feeling so powerless. Like, what can I do to help? What can I do? And then we just kind of sit around. We don't do anything. So I think what the show maybe, for me, I really get it that, that is not the right attitude. That one voice is really good. That people can stand up and say what their truth is and what they think is not right. And one voice is how one helping another is how things get done. And so my hope and what I get from the piece is that people will take away from that they are that they matter, that their one voice is how the collective happens. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's what I get from Erin. That's what I get from Krista. And so I'm hoping that kind of comes through your TV. And you're also laughing. By the way, we just have to say that the show's also funny. It is not a legal procedure. What is that? What they call them, Krista? A legal
procedural. It's not
procedural. It's not that. And it's got great humor. I'm telling you, and Erin's funny, so Rebel's funny. I mean, they're all,
It could be. I'm glad you brought that up though. And Chris, just so you know, there's been a couple of moments where I don't laugh out loud very often, but I laughed out loud and I'm like, oh God. So it is funny. And it's kind of, can be dry, funny, amazing. It just drops, right? And you're like, oh my gosh. So I'm glad you brought that up. It is funny. And that's, the work that I do, sometimes it's just not always funny. It can be heavy. And you don't see that here.
That's, for me, the medicine, like the laughter is the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. If you're looking at systemic injustice and if you're looking at, a medical device industry that doesn't test devices on human beings, and that's a real, true thing. It's a real thing. It's a real loophole in the FDA. If you're having a medical device put into your body, like a hip or a heart valve or something, it may or may not have been tested on human beings. And that terrifies me. And who wants to watch a show about that? You want to watch a show about funny people who are fucking with each other in and out of the courtroom and married to each other and cheating on each other and private investigators and, you know, like doing stunts. But there's the medicine inside it is like, hey, the work that Erin does is real and it's causing people tremendous harm. So I am proud because I feel like we have found a way to have all of it in one show. And I feel like it's the show I was born to write. It's the show that Erin lived, and it's the show that Katey was born to play. Like, I've had a lot of people say to me as they watch these dailies and as they watch this show, every single thing Katey Sagal has ever done has been leading up to this, because it uses all those years on sitcoms, all the broad character work, all the badass character work, all the maternal work, all of it comes together in this complete reinvention that requires like ninja-like skill. And it's really exciting. Yeah.
I love listening to all of your dynamics. It's so clear that you have so much care and love and respect for each other, and it's beautiful that you could create something out of that. So thank you so much for all of your time today, and everyone go check out Rebel. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Anita.
Bye.
Bye.